Hello, welcome to the Daisy Dates podcast, where we talk all things relationships, mindsets, dating obviously, and dating apps as well, which we're doing today. I'm in the studio with Jamie Johnston, founder of Mattr, which is a new and inclusive dating app. Welcome to the studio.
Hi Daisy, thanks for having me.
So good to have you. I've been following Mattr for a little while, so it's really nice we've made this little connection and you're here today. I always start the podcast with a little bit of a this or that game. Yeah, feeling ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so when dating, tickets to a live gig or tickets to a cinema?
Gig, definitely.
Absolutely. A picnic and each person brings something, or a sit-down dinner date?
I'm going to go with dinner actually on that one.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm surprised at that one actually.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
How come?
I just feel like with a picnic, sometimes you can get a little bit like, oh, there's mud there, or you don't know about the weather, you plan it, could chuck it down with rain. We live in the UK, right? So yeah, just book the dinner for me.
Yeah, I like that. A cycle or a long walk?
Long walk, for sure, a long walk. You can talk more on a walk, you're not covered in sweat. So yeah, I love a long walk. I'm a big fan of a walk, so yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, if you were to see something live, would you go for comedy or drama?
Oh, I like both, but comedy if it's a date.
Yeah, especially first one, I reckon.
Defo.
In the talking stage, phone calls or texting?
Good question. I'm going to go with texting and then leading to phone call.
Nice. And sharing food like tapas style or separate meals?
Depends what the food is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If it's like Indian, I feel like Indian and Chinese and tapas, you kind of want a bit of everything because there's such a big menu. Whereas if you're having a steak or, and someone's having a piece of fish, then yeah. So again, sorry to sit on the fence, but depends on the meal.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going to go pure tapas style. I love all the extra dishes. I like doing that. I think it's kind of a little bit intimate, but I think it creates conversation. If you're worried about conversation, I always kind of recommend a tapas style date because I think it gives that conversation about the different foods. And lastly, judging by what you said about the walk, I think I might know the answer, but city date or countryside date?
Yeah, again, I'm going to kind of sit on the fence on this one too. You know what? I'm actually just going to say city date because I went to Bristol this weekend and it was just amazing. Highly recommend if you've never been to Bristol. It's probably my favourite city in the UK. There's so much to do there. You can even get a good countryside bit into that if you go down to Ashton Downs. So yeah, for me, I'd say city date, but then try and venture out into the greener parts of that place. Okay,
I've actually never been to Bristol.
Amazing place.
Always wanted to. Okay, let's get to know you a little bit more then as the founder of Mattr. What's your experience with dating apps yourself?
So yeah, I was about 21, 22 when Tinder came on the scene. And I remember it quite vividly because I worked in an office. Back then I worked in event management and I was one of only about 5 or 6 boys in a company of about 60 women or something like that. And it was just an explosion of them always talking about Tinder and going on dates and there's this new app. So I was right at the beginning of that. But what was so great, I feel, not don't know if it's so great, but I kind of grew up without any apps. And then when I first moved into London to work, that's when they came out. So at the beginning, my university and kind of at college, it was all kind of, old school, talking to girls in bars and meeting people on nights out and all that kind of stuff. And then when I became an adult, but started working, that's when the apps came out. And then that really kind of changed the game you could meet people from all over the city. And I think, I know we're going to get into it. Dating apps get a very bad rep, but there's certainly a lot of positives to what they've done, and I'm sure we'll get into that later. But my experience of them is only as a 22-year-old, and then I was on them for, on and off, relationship here or there until I was 31, and now I've been in a relationship for the best part of 2 years from an app as well. So
very good. Yes. Okay, so your experience dating with apps and off apps has been quite pleasant.
Yeah,
generally?
I think so. Yeah, I think there's times where you have a bad app date. There's times where you have a bad non-app date. I've never, there has been a couple of occasions on apps where things, a bit weird or a bit different to how they might have been. But I would say if you look at all of it as a whole, my dating experience has been fairly good both on and off apps for the give or take 10, 11 years that I was, dating.
And do you think that dating has got harder as you've gotten older?
I think it really depends. Yes, I think when you're getting older, people are much more sure about what they want, and I think that's that's good because you know that person, if they have got what you want, then you're probably going to do better with them. There's not so much test and learn as there are when you're younger, but it kind of shortens the pool of people if they're they're so kind of focused on this or so kind of focused on that. And I suppose when you are getting into your kind of later 20s, earlier 30s, there is that kind of settling down, kids moving out of the city kind of conversation that people are either ready for or some people are not. And so I think that, it does shorten the pool a little bit. Or then you have the other option, which is that you just date someone younger who's not ready for that. And that's kind of what I see a lot of kind of friends of mine doing at kind of my age, is probably going, well, I'm not mature enough to kind of be the kids, settling down. So they have girlfriends that are in their kind of mid-20s rather than in the later 20s. So, but I do think it's definitely got a smaller pool.
I'm really finding that. So I'm 28 as a woman that would be ready for kind of everything. And then I'm finding that men that are like generally 31, 32, 33, they're going back to dating 23-year-olds. Because they can do that. Women can't do that so much.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I mean, this isn't anything new. This has been since the dawn of the ages, men have, dated, women that are kind of, younger or whatever it is. But it is funny because men mature a lot later than women in general. So, a 28-year-old woman like yourself, you might actually be like male maturity of like a 35-year-old. So technically you're dating a 31-year-old, he's actually less mature than you are now. So it's kind of a funny one because our brains, I think, just actually mature later. So, I can see exactly where you're coming from on that one.
Do you think that there's a little bit of a gender gap right now? Like, has dating got harder for men?
I think dating's got harder for men and women, but for different reasons. I think women are just overloaded, I think, with choice on apps, if we're talking about apps. And I mean, there's just so much choice for women. I mean, 70% of most users of dating apps are male. So, majority of people you're coming up against are going to be male. So for women, there's more choice. And what that means is they have something called the paradox of choice, which is where they think negatively about the options they're given because they have so many options. And to give you an example of that, what that means, you'd say you go to a restaurant and the menu is packed full of choices. You think the food's rubbish, right? Whereas if you go to a restaurant, there's like 3 or 4 things on the menu, you're like, oh, this is going to be great. So women just become more, I don't really know what the word is here, not really picky, but they have more filters. They put more guards up because they're dealing with so much choice. And that means that they end up all kind of fighting over the same guys. So to give you some stats, because I know we mentioned this before, that you like data and stats, and I'm a big fan of the numbers. So 80% of male profiles, 80% women find unattractive, which is a crazy amount. So 80% of all men that women see on dating apps, they find unattractive, which means by doing the maths, they only find 1 in 5 men attractive, which means that all of these women are fighting over these 20% of men, which means that some men do really, really well on dating apps. So they do amazing, like they clean up basically. I don't know the exact stat of this, but it's something like 15% of men get 90% of the matches, something like that. Which is it's something like that. Don't quote me on that one, but it's something around that number. So women do find it harder because it's very competitive for them with the men that they want, and men are finding it harder because they've got to kind of spread out. They have to like as many people as possible. And go out there and kind of get out there much more than women do. And I think there's hundreds of millions of studies you've seen where you'll just watch, women swiping and men swiping, just see the difference in how many matches. I think I saw a piece of content not that long ago where a woman set up a Tinder profile or something, it might have been Tinder, and she didn't even have a picture of herself. It was just, I think, a picture of like a table and her like feet on the table. And she got like 15 matches in that day and the guy got 1. And he had like a whole created profile. So it just shows you it is becoming more difficult, but for different reasons. Yeah,
the standards are different from what women want compared to what men want. And that kind of is just a fact as well. Like, even when I'm dating someone, I am dating someone now currently, and when I've kind of mentioned, oh, this was really important to me, or the fact that you do this was really important, he was like, what? He didn't really know what was necessarily important to him that he was looking for. He was just, going, if we get on and we have fun, that's great. Yeah. Whereas I'm thinking, okay, you probably need to want kids. You kind of need like a long-term plan. Like, you're thinking of like where you might want to live. Like all of these things are going through our heads. It's absolutely crazy. And the interesting thing I did hear on a podcast, albeit it was American stats, but it's going to be quite similar for the UK too. It was on Stephen Bartlett's podcast. And he had a guest on that was saying we're creating a world of like lonely men. So those X amount of people that do well, great, they're thriving, they're getting a lot of sex, they're meeting a lot of girls, they're loving life. But then you get that other percentage that aren't getting any matches. So there it's kind of degrading them and making them have low self-esteem.
Yep.
And that creates quite a dangerous type of man, which is the lonely man, maybe, you know, living at his mum's and just feeling really lonely.
For sure.
And that's quite dangerous.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of like what dating apps have done is that, you know, the kind of elite men really clean up, and the vast majority, and I'm not even talking, you could be in the top 60 percentile and still not be doing as well as, you know, as I said, you know, 15 or so percent get 90% of the matches. So you could be in the top 60 and still not, do very well. And, you know, you just need to look at it's really sad, but the biggest killer of, you know, young males is suicide, right? So, you know, a lot of men can go through their whole life completely unnoticed. And I think that's something that, you know, I'd really like to draw attention to a little bit, is that, like, for a lot of guys, they can be completely unnoticed on apps, in life, in nightclubs. And I think a lot of people don't really realize how lonely that can be. So it is very, very sad and very tragic. And also on the other side of that thing is you can create a lot of anger in people too, because they're not getting what they want. And then that side of the coin is obviously something that's really negative too, where you're creating this kind of cohort of just really angry men that, you know, they'll find something to vent against, right? So it is quite a serious thing.
Yeah, welcome the incel from there. That's when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. So I know that with Mattr, you're trying to kind of help all of these issues as much as you can.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, as the founder, when was it or why was it that you got to a point where you were like, right, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to create?
Yeah, so I left university and I worked in, you know, the advertising kind of creative industries for, it would have been, best part of 11 to 12 years. So I've always been around kind of social media and seen things, you know, pop up, and then we have to learn about all of them and sell them to clients, and you know, worked a lot with, advertising and getting stuff out there and this, that, and the other. So I kind of know the behind the scenes of how algorithms work a little bit. I worked in tech. Anyway, I was one of those people that got put on furlough for the whole of the pandemic. Ended up losing my job. At the end of that, they kind of cut basically the majority of the team, and I was, you know, interviewing for new jobs. Ended up getting this really great job where I was going to be it was a big company that was setting up another company within that company. So it was like a startup in a bigger company, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to come in and like head up the sales and the growth. And I should have been buzzing about it, right? 10 months of kind of watching YouTube or learning how to make Wagamamas at home. And now I've got this great new job and I was back out there. Because I loved my job before when I was working in tech. I was working in influencer tech sales. And I was the complete opposite. I was like having a complete breakdown about it, freaking out I was going to be useless, like hyper focusing on failure, and you know, it was just a pretty traumatic time before I took the job on. And at this point where I was kind of like, look, this is a bit more serious and kind of, you know, just being a bit nervous. So I spoke to a psychiatrist at this point and was like, you know, talked to him about how I was feeling, which I think a lot of men should do that. If you are feeling like it's a bit on top and overwhelming, do talk to someone. You know, problem shared is a problem halved. And the reason I did that, I didn't kind of just jump in and say, I need to talk to psychiatrist. As my whole life, I thought I've had ADHD. And I know that ADHD is a very kind of in vogue thing at the minute. But I've struggled with the symptoms of ADHD ever since I was a kid. And I've tried to get diagnosed before. I'm not going to go into the story about why that didn't happen, but in typical ADHD fashion, all the paperwork I was meant to send to them, I put in the post box, and I didn't put it was like a really heavy paper, and I didn't put the right thing on it, and it went to the psychiatrist, and they never got it. And so I told my mum that I didn't have it because she lent me the money for the diagnosis. So mum, sorry.
Because it was private. So it's very expensive, isn't it?
Private. So yeah. I mean, they should have just diagnosed me then. I mean, I just went and chucked it in with like a second class stamp, and it probably weighed about 600-700 grams. So yeah. So then I kind of had to live from like 24, 25, you know, knowing, you know, about all this condition all the way to, you know, 31 or whatever it was, struggling with all the symptoms and not being able to access the help. So anyway, I was diagnosed fairly quickly, I would say, but went through all the kind of the rigmarole around that. And I was really, you know, I always give an analogy about my diagnosis, which is it's like someone taking a backpack that's full of weights off your back. because now you can kind of understand, why I was like that at school, why I got in trouble for this, why I feel anxious about this, why I can't sleep. Then you get access to help, support, and medication. I think before you actually get told by a professional you have a condition, you always kind of feel a bit like an imposter, like, oh, I've got all the symptoms, but I don't have the accreditation or whatever. And so you're always kind of on the periphery of getting the information and taking it all in. The medications dramatically helped me. It's not, some people don't take it, that's their choice, but it's definitely helped me. And I was very, very comfortable with talking about ADHD or like learning about, who I was or how I could kind of better myself in the workplace. And I was very comfortable, like I am with you now, Daisy, just saying like, I've got ADHD, I'm cool with it. But I just wasn't on dating apps. And I was some form of barrier where I'm like, I can't write this down. People are going to judge me. Like, I just did what the vast majority of people do on dating apps, which is mask. They just put, look at my 5 best pictures and everything's amazing. And, I'm so witty and humorous. And, I like to say I'm witty and humorous, but it's very forced, right? Dating apps feel very forced. It's like, create this amazing picture perfect version. I've got absolutely nothing wrong with me, which we know in every single person in the world, that's not true, and put that forward. And I think the reason for that is, one, as we've just mentioned, we know how competitive they are, especially for men, well, and women as well, but men know that the vast majority of the users on there are other men. And also, I think that even if you don't have a very good understanding of technology, you understand that algorithms are competitive, and you understand that, you're getting scored, or, something's happening in the back end that you're, that what you put into it is going to feed into the algorithm. So that's where the idea of it came from. Because if you look at dating apps, of course, you've got your generics, your Tinder, Tingers, Bumbles. Then you've got your kind of, more niche ones. There's religion-based, sobriety, single parents. Then you've got the kind of quite wacky ones. That you mentioned their countrysides. There's a countryside dating app.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's for like people that like, getting muddy and, and farmers and that kind of stuff. And I was just like desperately looking for like an app that was about like honesty and kind of just basically no bullshit, basically. An app where you could just be yourself without kind of fear of judgment, and also kind of discuss things a little bit, that what's going on in your brain, and not feel that someone's going to, kind of judge you for that, or think, I'm going to give a pass to that person. And there just really wasn't anything out there. And I suppose everyone has ideas for businesses all the time, and they're just like, oh, wow, okay, cool. That would be a great app. I mean, how many times have you been at the pub and someone went, I've got a great idea for an app, and then they just forget about it? But I just couldn't let it go.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's kind of the very long-winded kind of how we got to starting Mattr.
I guess your background in tech kind of helped, because obviously what if I've thought, oh, this would make a good app. The idea of being like, how do you even start an app is like absolutely clueless to me. We mentioned just now before we got into all of that, how you were quite worried to approach ADHD on dating app profiles.
Yeah.
Is it something that you feel is necessary in a dating app bio?
Yeah, I think it's very important to be upfront and honest about who you are as a person, because everyone in this day and age is so busy, Daisy, right? Everyone needed something done yesterday. So don't waste your time trying to go on a date with someone that's not going to be compatible with you. And you don't know that they're not going to be compatible with you anyway, but at least give yourself the best chance. Having ADHD and being in a relationship with someone with ADHD it's quite a lot. There's a lot of highs, there's a lot, there's lots of lows. We're a different, we have a different wiring up of the brain. And I think that's really, needs to be said, and for people to either learn more about it on the other side, but also for you to be comfortable going like, if I'm going to go on a date with a person, it's helpful to me or to us because we've told you. So, I mentioned before we did this podcast, that if I look around the room, it's not because I'm ignoring it, it's because when I'm thinking, I can't look at someone's face. Whereas that can happen on a date, and then they could go, oh, that guy was so rude. And now if you explain it before, it means that I'm not nervous about doing it. That I'm not being rude, and it's all kosher, basically. And it's not just ADHD. It can be a whole range of things. It doesn't have to be neurodiversity. It could be just, you don't like crowded spaces, or, you would rather go to a pub than a club, or, whatever it is. I feel there's quite a lot of things where people don't want to put stuff down on dating apps, even though it means something quite important to them. Or it could even be like a really big red flag for, like you could go on a date with someone, you're really against X, Y, and Z, but you don't write it down because you don't want to like kind of ruffle feathers. that's what we're trying to change. Is I think what's really, really important is don't look at dating apps as like a real big numbers game. And I know that I know this is completely against like what people say, right? You know, it's like, oh, you know, get just more numbers, more numbers, more numbers. We always say at Mattr, be for someone, not for everyone. It's better to get one match in the whole month and that person is completely on your wavelength than get 20 that are not. You're going to waste so much of your life talking to them, or even money going on these dates. You're going to get way less self-esteem from getting that. You might get the big kind of dopamine ego boost, like, oh yeah, I got loads of matches, but then, you know, you're going to meet them. They might not text you back, call you back. You're going to feel even more negative. So we always say, like, don't feel scared to put down like things that might turn people off, because they're the right people to turn off, because they're not going to be compatible with you anyway. So, you know, you're saving yourself some time. And that is something that you just don't see on the other apps. So, so that's what we're really trying to do, is get people to be open. But I do think it's very important to put down things, especially like, I can't cure ADHD. So if you want to be in a relationship with me, you're going to have to deal with it for the rest of your and my life, or whatever it is. So yeah, it's good to get that down.
So if someone matched with someone that had ADHD and they ended up on a date with them, how can someone without ADHD help someone on a date that has it?
I think make them feel comfortable. So if they've told you already that they have it, maybe like comment on it or something when you're talking to them on the app. Just be like, oh, I noticed you have ADHD. You're probably going to know someone that has ADHD. I mean, everyone knows someone that has it. I mean, we're 5% of the population. So make a comment about it, or be interested in it, because, you know, one of the symptoms of ADHD is, you know, you like people asking you questions about yourself and all that kind of stuff. So make them feel comfortable about it before you get there. And then pick a date which is going to be fine for you to go on for a first date, because there's going to be dates that are probably going to be better and worse than going to someone with ADHD on. So anywhere where you've kind of got to sit still for a long period of time, get that just in the bin. So cinema, absolutely not. Worst first date ever anyway. I think we'll agree, because what's the point?
I agree, yeah.
It's just pointless, right?
Awkward.
Yeah, it's just weird as well. Like, we'll just sit there in silence in the dark. So don't go to the cinema. Activities is really good. Like, I know it sounds really cringing, but like, like Flight Club or like Crazy Golf or something like that, where you can move around so they don't have to kind of focus on you, like, because that can cause, like, certainly for me, that causes quite a lot of anxiety at the beginning. So think about the date you might want to go on, but also just make them feel comfortable about it. If they have a bit of an ADHD moment, let them have it. If they look around the room or whatever, it'd be great if you ask them, like, what are the things you're nervous about going on this date, so that I can prepare myself for it accordingly. So communication is key, always. So yeah, I'm a big fan of communication.
I know that Mattr are helping with things like this. So how is Mattr helpful for neurodivergent people?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So, our app launched not that long, a few weeks ago. So we're what's called MVP stage, which is like the minimum viable product. So it's like the most basic version, and we build out on it. So we wanted at the beginning to see, like, okay, what stuff do we need in there right now, and what stuff can we kind of build in? So we limit the amount of people that you can connect with a day. So, and we increase it as we get more users in. So right now I think it's 4. What that means is, like, you're not getting overwhelmed with choice. So ADHD, if we just look at ADHD, I mean, there's hundreds of other things, but you asked me specifically about ADHD, I think, right? I could easily, and I did, get addicted to things like Tinder, Bumble, like, where you're like, you could have 100,000 people if you wanted. If I did 18 to 40 in London, do you know what I mean? It's 100,000 people, and it becomes like gambling. And they use, a lot of these apps use very similar software and techniques to gambling companies. So it's like, put another £5 in the machine, pull the reel, chuck a super like at that person. So, they can become very addictive. And one of the things I was like, right, I want people to slow down. So the big mantra of Mattr, we're very, we're fully inclusive to everyone. We don't have a discriminatory algorithm. So we match you purely on interest. There's no scoring, nothing like that. So you only get matched on your preferences and your interests. And we do a little really quick fire. We do this or that basically on our app. When you come in, everyone does it. You have to answer 10 questions. And it's fun stuff like Marmite, love, hate, pineapple on pizza. Then, so it doesn't feel that deep. Then you can get deeper in the bio and stuff like that. So we only match you on that. But one of the things we really want you to do from the top all the way is to slow down. Just take a minute. You don't need to match with hundreds of millions of people, be having loads of different conversations. You need to have a few. So we allow you to connect with 4 people, I think it is a day. That will be growing as we get larger and get more users. We don't allow you to connect with someone without writing to them. So we want to get rid of that whole kind of like, just chuck a like there and just go to the next one. So you have to send a message, which means that you basically have to read the profile or look at the pictures, because you're not just going to go like, hey, what's up? Well, you can, but it's not really great if there's pictures,
don't do that. Don't ever do that.
Yeah, I know. I've listened to your podcast episode before when you mentioned that, but yeah. So we want you to slow down, to message someone, because one, it means that you're actually taking some time to look at this person and what they're about. And two, it also means on the other end, when they receive that they know why you're interested in them. Because let me give an example, right? You know, on the swiping out. So we don't have swiping as well, by the way. You get given all 4 in one go. Because you don't have to make a decision on someone. We also allow you to save the profiles, which I think is really nice. So if you, let's say that I'm on the bus and I'm just on Mattr and I'm seeing this profile of this, you know, this girl or this guy, and I'm like, oh, they're cute. Like, but then I get to my stop and it's like, oh, I didn't want to like close the app because that can then get rid of that person. I didn't want to click yes or no because I hadn't read the profile. You can just click save and we'll save it in the back. So that's so taking away so much anxiety from the whole thing. So no swiping, you can save, and you have to message. Because let me give you an example, right? Okay, I really love dogs. I'm just going to really generic. I love dogs. Okay, and so if you don't like dogs, I really want a dog. It's basically like your version of a kid, I think, right? So like, I'm really excited about having my first puppy. You want your first child, and that kind of shows the maturity levels of men and women right now, right? So I don't really want, if I was dating now, I would, you know, if someone said like, I really hate dogs or whatever, that would be a huge red flag for me. But because, and everyone does this, by the way, right? You're on one of the swiping apps, you just see their face, you're like, oh, they're cute, swipe. And their profile could be like, absolutely despise dogs. And you've just swiped on them. And so you're going to match with them and read, and the first thing you're going to see is that, and you're like, this is a waste of time. And you've wasted the other person's time as well, because they've said like, you know, you could be allergic, you could have had a dog bite, so it could be completely like something that's really important to you. So we make you open the profile. You have to open the profile to even write the message, right? So you have to open that, and then you have to write something. So we're trying to just basically slow everything down, and specifically for ADHD people, that works wonders, because you're not getting like overwhelmed. You're not playing like dopamine gambling or whatever it is, and you're just taking a minute.
I think it really helps as well, because it helps people be less judgmental, because you're not swiping and choosing. Because do you know how judgmental this makes you? Like a guy said to me recently, like, if a girl's bedroom is messy in the background, I'll swipe no. And he's like, what the hell? If I was at a pretty girl's house, wouldn't care what her bedroom looked like. Yeah. Like, this is how judgmental it makes you though. Like, oh, he goes to that bar. Don't really like that bar. And it's literally that superficial when you're swiping and judging. And what I also like is you're basing it on traits, like being... Everything you've mentioned about Mattr so far is you're basing it on being honest, loyal and open, and honest about yourself, rather than matching people just because they like the countryside or just because they like drinking a lot or just because they like something else. Because also matching people that are very similar to you isn't always the thing to go for. And that was only with a recent podcast where I guess that actually maybe you need to go for someone that doesn't like everything that you like, because that can be different, can be helpful too and help conversations. So I like that you're basing it on traits rather than the hobbies in common. Yeah,
so we've got a whole range of things, but yeah, traits is really, really important to us. And obviously the quiz thing is so much, you know, everyone loves a quiz. When we ever do like feedback, people love the quiz. But I think one of the real key features we have is called Honesty Box. And so Honesty Box basically just has like something you, and I, you know, I'll ask you, Daisy, let's play, you know, let me ask you a question. I'll flip reverse. I'll play the Uno card, so it's going back on you now. So basically we make everyone, we don't make anyone do anything, but we, you know, it's on the profile. So we have a thing called Honesty Box, and it's basically like something that you feel that you're really good at. And that can be either a talent or something personal, like I'm really empathetic, and then something you feel negative about or something that you need help on. So go ahead.
I know these straight away.
Go ahead.
So I have a natural way to make people feel quite comfortable. Like I think I have a naturally like warm aura. That's why I do what I do. One of my worst traits is I'm very impatient as a person.
I share that.
Yeah, to the point it's really bad. Like, and I've started dating someone that is so amazing with that. So like someone was going 20 miles an hour the other day. When I was in such a rush, and it was a road where you should be going 40, 50. It was infuriating for me, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, just drive. And he puts hand on knee and is like, come on, let's distract you. And he just completely took me out of it because I was losing my head, getting so impatient. I don't want to be like that. That's just my negative trait. So that would be one of my favourite traits about myself versus one of my most hated about myself.
And the reason we make people do this is one, it's really great to be vulnerable. It's great to kind of put, like stuff that you need help on or stuff that you maybe dislike about yourself. But it also allows the other person to be like, oh, I can help with that. And people love helping each other. So there's a thing called Help Us High, which is like anyone can get it. It's legal highs. You can go out and get high right now. Help Us High. Like help an old lady across the road or, and I'm looking for it all the time. Like I love doing it. Like it really gives me a buzz. Like, even when I came here today at Milton Keynes, there was, I'm not saying like, oh, look at me, I'm a great Samaritan, but, I helped this old lady with her bag up the stairs and, it makes you feel great. So people actually like doing that on dating too. They like helping each other. So for instance, I love planning things. I'm that guy, right? I love planning things. Okay. I'm spontaneous too, but I like, if we're going on holiday, I want to like be like, okay, I know what time we're leaving. I know where we're getting to. Like, I'm that guy. I want to check the travel reviews, go on TikTok, look for the cool spots. I'm not, I don't want to just turn up and be like, oh, it's Saturday night, I haven't got a dinner reservation. I want to be kind of planned. And some people are completely not like that. Okay. And some people are like, do it on a whim, sod it, we'll work it out. So actually, like going out with someone like me for them is great because they're like, oh, actually, my partner likes doing all this stuff and I hate doing it. And so, I can leave him to do that and he's going to enjoy it. So some of the things you actually might think negatively about yourself, some people might be actually really looking for. So, we try and get people to do that. And because everyone's putting something negative down, they don't feel like nervous about doing it because every profile's got it, right? So it's not like you're going to stick out or be odd. And so, it's a really great thing to do. And also in that honesty box, you can put red flags in there, like your red flags if you want, but also stuff that is just non-negotiables for you. And I think non-negotiables they're quite important. I think it's a very aggressive sounding thing. It's like non-negotiable, but I wish we could just change the word of that. But it is important to kind of have things that you won't kind of budge on. And again, a lot of people won't put those in profiles because they feel like, I'm going to scare someone off or, it makes me come across a bit aggressive or abrasive. But we allow, we've created a box for you to do that. So we wouldn't have created a box for you to do that if we didn't want you to do it. So that's where the honesty box side of things come in. Again, really great for anyone that's got any sort of neurodiversity in that box because they can be like, don't take me to play darts because I'm so dyslexic I won't know what's on the board or, I've got ADHD, so if I talk a lot, please tell me to shut up or whatever it is. It gives them that safe space where they can do that.
I love that. I think it creates a place of people that are very self-aware, which is really important to me to date someone self-aware because I'm like so self-aware of like all of my greatest and worst traits and I like someone to be like that as well.
For sure.
Self-awareness is key. With the app, can you see a clear difference from your app, how men and women use it differently? Even in the form of this honesty box, can you tell the difference between how men and women use it differently?
Yeah, a little bit. So I don't have any kind of, really hardcore data on, men and women, how they use it differently for certain things. But what I can say is like what I've seen, because obviously I'm on the app. I'm very clear, by the way, that I'm in a relationship on the app. I'm like, hey, I'm the founder. Like I'm here just to make sure everyone's fine. Basically use me as customer support. And so one thing I've noticed, and this is really, really important. I don't know if we're going to have a question on this later, but I'm just going to jump into it now. Dating apps, as I mentioned before, are so heavily dominated by men. They are massively over-indexing on men. And so Bumble, which everyone thinks is the female-first app, it's founded by a woman. It's got women make the first move. Their users are 68, something like that, 60 in their late 60% male. Right, so it's a very it's 2/3 near enough. What we're seeing on Mattr, okay, it's a minuscule sample size compared to what they are, but we're seeing very, very heavily dominated the other way towards women. So I think the last check we had something like 66% of our users were women, and that marries up across social as well. So it's not a behavior, but women are very drawn to our product, and I think it's really interesting. It's like we were trying to create a much better space to date where there's as equal as we can get it, men and women. So women don't feel like they're completely swamped with choice, where men don't feel like they have to be so competitive because there's hundreds of other guys vying for the attention. So how do you do that? Well, you need to get more women into these apps, right? And so how do you get more women to those apps is, well, you change the whole concept and the behavior and everything about what you're doing. So we talk about vulnerability, we talk about, not being overwhelmed. We talk about a lot of things that, women are kind of, they're more susceptible to from what we see. We also work very heavily with brands. So dating app is a catalyst for a connection, and then they're like, okay, good luck, bon chance, Whereas we were like, well, no, why can't we just extend this user journey? Why can't we help people on this? So anyone that's a member of Mattr, there's a brand partners section within our app. You can go in there and you can get all the stuff you need for dates. And we put like 2 or 3 new brands in a month. So for instance, we worked with a cosmetics brand the other day, called Pearl. They did something all around like unmasking. And we matched it up with what we're doing, so you can kind of get ready for your date. We have like health and wellness products. We work with a lot of brands that are very synonymous with females as well, and we give them incentives to be there. So that again draws in the females, and also because we're spending time with a lot of female founders and understanding the trials and tribulations of women going out and dating. And it's interesting me talking to you. Like I'm a guy. I'm a straight male, so I don't really know what it's like to be in a woman's brain and be dating. And I can give you stats and data, but I've got no experience like you have, like you have none for being guys. So we try to spend a lot of time talking to people that are going to use the product. And I think, why don't people do that? So if you want more women in the product, go start talking about women about how they date. So that one, it's not really a behavior, but we do see a lot more women on our product. Again, small sample size. I would also say that women are not afraid to do a bigger bio, which again, by the way, I'm all in favor of. Nothing annoys me more than seeing like a blank bio. So what we've done to stop that now is that we will not like let open the perks side of the app until you've completed the profile. And that's not because we're trying to be some sort of taskmasters. Is that people can't talk to you, like if you don't have any information. If you've got one picture up and no information, then, the absolute bare minimum to get on the product, like how's anyone meant to start a conversation with you? So, you're on this product to be serious about meeting someone in any sort of guise. And another thing, we're very open about what type of relationship you are looking for. I think this is an absolutely fascinating and interesting topic, is the shift in Gen Z about how they view relationships from kind of millennials. But, we allow you to say like, looking for something casual or, looking for long term or whatever it is. So again, you can be really upfront about kind of what you're looking for. And I think a lot of the guys' profiles I'll see, they'll just put like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whereas women will be like, want this.
Yeah. Tell us about that shift that you mean from millennials to Gen Z.
Yeah. Super interesting. I absolutely love stuff like this. So, so Gen Z, obviously, is anyone born after around 97. So they were kind of like the real first internet generation. They grew up with the internet, right? So it came into their life. It's always had it. So, instantaneous things are just normal. Like back in the day, if I wanted to get a minicab in London, oh my God, it was like, had to call the number, you had to wait there. It was so dangerous, just wait out in the street corners like 3 a.m. Then, you need to get cash out. If you didn't have cash, you didn't take card. Now it's just like Uber.
Right. I've grown up with Uber, Amazon Prime, Spotify, for instant music, everything.
Deliveroo is the one that spins my mind. Like we had one pizza place where I lived in South West London. That was it. Like it was like Go-Go Pizza or nothing. So now it's like, if I want to have like a full-time meal at 3 a.m, I can do that. So they've grown up with kind of instant gratification. Everything's kind of coming to them quickly, and they're very socially conscious. They feel like they've been dealt a really rough hand, with climate change, which to some extent they have. They've grown up through a lot of, really bad things like, the financial crash, and with COVID kind of stole a lot of their universities. In terms of dating, it's really interesting. So they don't view dating like we used to. It's kind of like, monogamous, meet someone, get married. Like that's kind of like the life path. Like, you meet someone, you date, you stay together, you buy a house. A lot of these things are kind of unobtainable for them. Home ownership, forget about it. You know what I mean? You need to be a multi-millionaire to do that, or have someone that's going to support you. So that's why they spend so much money on material things or experiences. So that kind of home ownership bit's not really there. They've kind of invented this situationship, where they're like kind of in between. I don't really know too much about. Do you know what?
I know about situationships. Yeah, I find myself in them a lot. It is when it's not really a relationship. You're doing everything a relationship does, but without the label.
The non-committal.
Yeah, I'd say it happens for 3 months. It's the 3-month mark. It's that first part of dating that could be getting serious, but then normally it just stops after 3 months. But some people can have situationships for like a year or something. But then that's just about having, if you don't want that, that's about having boundaries put in place. That if you're not going to make me your girlfriend or boyfriend by if we're not going to have this commitment towards each other, then I don't want to do it. But if you're happy with a situationship, then it can be the best thing ever. If you're both in a place where you want to meet up with the same person to, maybe have safe sex and have that person to confide in after a long day, but don't want anything after that. It's a weird space.
It's a weird space because I feel like you should just have a conversation about kind of having an open relationship or being non-monogamous, because I feel like that situationship is like, I want everything that a girlfriend gives me, but I don't want to be trapped into like not that's for me. Otherwise, I don't really understand what the point of it is.
But to be fair, the term boyfriend and girlfriend scares me. Like I know that I've been dating someone now for like a month and a half, and that's like the best amount of time that I've had in a little while. Like I've been going on 1, 2, 3 dates, and then that's it because I'm like just not bothered. And now I'm like, gosh, this could really go towards girlfriend, boyfriend. And I'm like, oh, don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
That feels weird to me. And that's like definitely a commitment phobe thing from myself that I've only recently kind of discovered. I mean, other people might think that's quite obvious because I'm 28 and I've been single a lot of it, and just dating and having loads of fun. But I'm scared of that term. So I kind of understand it. I don't know why that term brings so much breadth or depth to us, but it just does.
Yeah, it's just, I just think they've just created for something which is that they don't, it would have been called non-committal for us, do you know what I mean? They've just put a name on it, but, they prioritize it. You're going to see, I mean, I tell investors this because obviously they need to know that the market they're going into is growing. You're going to see so many more single people now than ever before as people prioritize career, and women are going to be prioritizing career a lot more as they need more money, and kind of even having kids seems, too expensive now. It's really sad that people say, well, I don't want to have kids because I can't afford them. But it's true, if you want to raise children. So you're going to see a lot more single people, which means that dating apps are going to, grow even more and more. And Gen Z are much more happy with kind of like, whatever, they don't have to have that monogamous kind of, trajectory. So, a lot of them are either abstaining completely from sex, like being like, oh, I'm just going to abstain. I think like if you look online, you can see how much that's growing, and that used to be kind of just like a religious thing before. Now it's like people are like, no. But then on the other side of things, people are so sex positive now. I mean, we're looking at things like, non-monogamy, which I mentioned before, and the rise of apps like Field and Pure, and, talking about going to a sex party now is completely like normal. Like, do you know what I mean? They're all, they're all over the country. So there's that side of the coin too. And it's kind of like whatever works for you. And I think what's really interesting if we look at Hinge is, and this really surprised me, especially as an advertising kind of marketing person, was Hinge's strapline is designed to be deleted. Firstly, no one believes that, right? No one wants you to delete their product. Again, average Joe in the street has no idea about marketing, knows that no one wants you to stop using their product. So I don't know why they came up with that. But the whole premise of Hinge, and they spent loads of money on this big ad campaign, which is animation, where this guy's kind of going through this circus, and then in the end he meets this woman, and they get together, and then the Hinge app on his phone actually blows up because they're now in this monogamous relationship and we're not needed anymore. It's very sweet. And it probably would have cost a hell of a lot of money because it's all animation. But now they're pushing this whole non-monogamy route, where they've kind of opened up, conversations around being pansexual and having multiple partners. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. How can your app be saying designed to be deleted, and then you're just kind of chucking this on the top? And that's because there's a huge rise in Gen Z kind of looking at those types of relationships, which is what I kind of just think a situationship is. It's just like you have a primary partner or whatever, and you have people that you might have, flings with on the side. And I think it's a 17%, again, don't quote me, but 17% year on year increase in the term non-monogamy on dating app profiles. I can't remember which one, but it's a lot. So 17% year on year, if that compounds, it could be 25%. So they are looking at different ways of relationships.
People are more fluid now too. You mentioned pansexual, which means that you date anyone that can give you that romantic connection, right? So it's regardless of gender identity or anything like that. So people are much more fluid and trying these things as well as non-monogamy as well. Yep. So yeah, Gen Zs are definitely more open-minded. Is that helpful for dating apps?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, we're inclusive to all different types of people. We talk about non-negotiables. Like, we've got non-negotiable to any sort of like hate or anything like that. We're very, very secure as a product. I say a lot about what I see in other products and how they don't protect their users, and we won't stand for that Mattr. So we're very strong on kind of the security side of things. But, we have, a range of different genders. You can identify with how you like. We won't tolerate any sort of kind of like hate speech or anything like that. We have, loads of different ways to date as well. So you could say like looking for something right now. You could say long term, like short, but looking for long, whatever it is. All the communication's available there. But yeah, it's nice. And again, we're in our infancy, so we're growing really rapidly. So it won't be long before we can do some really big pieces of data, because I'm really interested in looking at kind of straight and LGBT plus like splits and kind of, looking at the data behind that. One, because I love data, but two, also just to see the different ways that different communities interact on the product. But it's obviously great for our product, because, we just want people to be open and honest about who they are. And if people are trying out being fluid for the first time, or they might, for instance, if you think you might be gay, jumping into a gay dating app where everyone is fairly sure that they're gay and they're all there, that can be quite a daunting experience. And actually, it's a much more kind of cutthroat place, gay dating, than straight dating, in terms of how they're kind of to the point there. And so that could be quite a scary place to go. So for us, getting people to come onto Mattr, and then that might be their kind of first step in the water, that's great. I would love that to happen. If people want to use us as their kind of initial trying it out place, we're more than welcome to have those people here. We welcome you massively.
And just going back to what we mentioned about Gen Z, I know that you had a little bit of a blog post about this. It was quite interesting, and you spoke about TikTok. And to be fair, this is happening in every kind of age group with TikTok. But Gen Z are quite prominent with their presence on an app like TikTok, and do talk about, there'll be a lot of girls that be like, oh my God, if you actually want a coffee date, girls, do not go. And all of that kind of thing, which can be, as you've mentioned, detrimental to like mental health when it comes to dating etiquette. Yeah,
I got asked actually to give comment about 7 or 8 months ago for the Mattr newspaper about the golden retriever boyfriend. And I'd never heard of the golden retriever boyfriend. Have you heard of the golden retriever boyfriend?
No, only when I read it on your blog.
Okay. So it's basically happy-go-lucky, golden retriever type of guy, dependable, smiley. It's like the complete antithesis of the bad boy that, that a lot of women desire. Or I think they desire the thought of it rather than the, actually
100%.
Because, my boyfriend's, he's in prison, or you can't hang out with me tonight because he's a drug dealer. Do you know what I mean?
It's not really even that bad boy. It's just the boys that are non-committal, them bad boys that just never commit to you. We're drawn to that, and I don't know why. And for the first time ever, I've really tried hard to like get out of that wiring of being drawn to such.
It's a chase, right? It's a dopamine thing. So, it's like you said, you've been desperately going, not desperately, but, looking at dates and been trying to find someone, then you found someone, and now you're like, oh, now I'm scared of the boyfriend name.
I am.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's a dopamine thing, and that's very much, dopamine is an ADHD thing, but it's for everyone. You're chasing dopamine, that's why people do bungee jumping, it's like, that's why they jump off, high buildings, because they want that, dopamine.
But these things can be detrimental when reading them, and I think it's confusing to get all these opinions. Like,
for sure.
Like if you really like someone and they want to take you on a coffee date, but young girls or boys are like, or men, women are like, oh, actually, TikTok told me that I shouldn't go on a coffee date. So.
Yeah. My piece of advice on this, I don't kind of beat around the bush in this. Do not, under any circumstance, take any advice from social media about who you should date and what are trends and trendings. What you're talking about there on the coffee date is something called rules-based datings, and it's basically like reading a 1950s American housewife magazine that's like, 10 ways to bag this man, that type of content and it's much like, if they offer you something that they deem as cheap, ignore it, because they should be taking you to, the Shard on the first date. If they, only hang around in expensive places, and stand by the bar, and kind of, it's very devaluing. And it's so funny that, the big movie this year is Barbie, which is all around female empowerment. And then rules-based dating is basically saying like, shut up, your opinion's not wanted.
I think what the point is here is not to kind of pinpoint everyone into a specific type, because you can get a lovely golden retriever type guy that's lovely and really patient with you and really careful with you in situations that might stress you out. But then you also might still need them to be quite dominant in other forms of dating. So you kind of need the overall, but also what suits you.
100%.
I think it's pinpointing people into sections is what social media can do. And I will caveat, I do agree, like, don't trust everything you see on social media, but I'm quite good with using my social media in terms of I don't follow people that make me feel rubbish. I'm really good at who I follow. So therefore I also follow accounts that are actual experts. So I follow accounts that are therapists, counsellors, maybe like healing therapists, and they give good advice from a place of expertise.
Totally agree. I think what I was trying to say there was trends and anything that's kind of like on your For You page that people are like, bantering about. Like a lot of the things that people say on social media, they do it for the, the clout. They do it for the likes and the views. And, we discussed this earlier for this chat. So just take everything with not even a pinch of salt, like an ounce of salt. A lot of the stuff you'll see on there is just for the clout. But my advice is look at your values. I think that's really important. Look at your values, look at kind of your strengths, your weaknesses, and kind of match up with that. Like, for me, I don't care if you're the CEO of JP Morgan or if you work in McDonald's. Like, you could be a horrible person, have loads of money, and I'm not going to be remotely attracted to you. Or, you're going to, I might be attracted to you at the beginning, but I'm not going to spend my life with you. I think personality is so important, and that's something that dating apps, it's really difficult for you to get personality across on your dating app, but it's something that we try desperately to do because attraction is important. Yes, looks are important, of course. And that's the initial thing you see on a dating app. You go, oh, is that guy cute? Oh, that girl fit. But you need to know about their personality because you can't stay with someone on their attract because those looks, everyone's looks fade as you get older, but they will become less appealing to you if you feel that they're a bad person. So personality is so important. I think, we went around the streets and asked people looks or personality, and nearly everyone said personality, which I think people do say because you're putting them on a camera. They don't want to be like, oh, I'm vain. But, it is okay to say looks, especially on apps. I think majority of people are picking on looks at the beginning. But that's what I think is so important for when you're trying to pick a partner. Don't go on social media and start calling people golden retrievers or Dachshunds or German Shepherds or whatever they're called, or thinking about rules, because if, for instance, the rules thing, you might live in a small village. There's no fancy restaurant near you anyway. So what does that mean? You've got to be miserable your whole life. You're not going to get this elite guy or whatever. People just say things without thinking about how they affect other people. You might not have the clothes to go into this place, or et cetera, et cetera. So things which make you feel in any sense unnerved or devalued, then just ignore that. Of course, psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists, obviously I've spoken to those people in the past. Definitely listen to what they say. # golden retriever boyfriend. Forget about it.
The golden retriever, that is hilarious. I always wonder who the first person is that gets this trend and then suddenly it goes viral. Agency. It's hilarious. Okay then, how can people get Mattr right now?
Yeah, so Mattr is available only in London for the time being, and sorry to disappoint people that don't live in London, but the reason for that is that we need people to be near each other to connect. But we do have a waiting list that you can go and put down. So if you want Mattr to come to your town or city, put it in there. Everything's done on data. So if we see that we've got a huge amount of users waiting to go in Sheffield, that's where we'll go. If it's Inverness, then we're going to Inverness. So put it down there. We are available on iOS. Android is in development. I'm very happy to announce that by the time this comes out, we will start development, which is very exciting because I get so many DMs like, when are you coming on Android? And we're like, we've only got 3 people in the tech team. So we've built iOS. So if you're on iOS and you live in any of the London boroughs, you can download us now. Android users, please hang on for a second, and outside of London, please drop us a city request so download the app, and then when it comes to logging in, you put your city in and we save it.
Amazing. And I know that dating apps are quite big on actual real life events now too, like making that community. So is that on the cards?
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got our Brown Partners section. So we do a lot of stuff with Brown, so you can get really great discounts there on cosmetics, health and wellness, fitness. If you want to go on fitness dates, they're there. So we have a partnership with In-State Fitness, which is a gym in Wandsworth. You can go and get discounts on the membership there and go fitness dating. We're also just about to launch a really exciting partnership with a nightclub called Be London. They want to open up the club before the club's open and do like cool events in there. So there's going to be themed cocktail making nights there. So they're going to have like a James Bond one. They're going to do like a Titanic one. I went down. You'll see the content's not out yet, but you'll see the content of me making a cocktail at the club, and we did a little race with the marketing manager there. It was so much fun. I don't think you'll drink my cocktail, but you can see why when you watch the content. I won't let anyone go to mattr.social, mattr.social on Instagram, and have a look at the content. So yeah, we are really, really want to expand kind of in person. We do have one panel discussion coming up. So we want to do things that are different. So our strapline is Date Different, and we want to try and do things that are exciting, that some things involve education, some things involve, having a drink, some things involve activity. So if you are a member, and I know this comes across very exclusive, but they kind of reached out to us to do it, and we were very happy. So if you are a member of Soho House and you would like to come along on the 4th of October, we are doing a panel discussion at Shoreditch House called Dating Apps, More Harm Than Good. And we will be looking back at the last 11 years of dating apps and talking about their impact on society. And we've got an absolutely amazing panel with psychologists, people. We're talking about social media trends. We've got someone there from TikTok, myself, and we also have a chap called Stephen Pierre, who's the most liked man on Tinder in the UK.
Oh, incredible! Yeah, I've seen him
Tinder,
around. Yeah.
So he's in the 1% of the 15% that get all the 90 matches. So you'll be able to actually speak to him directly and kind of see what his experience was like as a male that obviously cleaned up, did well.
Cleans up.
He's now a relationship coach. So
amazing. Wow, how Tinder changed his life.
For sure.
Incredible. Okay, so I always have a finale question, and I was actually going to ask you advice on consciously dating, but you actually naturally gave us that earlier. So wonderful. I've changed the question, which is, you're obviously in a relationship now, have been for a couple of years. So my question to you is, what did this person do that made you want to commit to them and say yes to this person?
It's a good question. Okay, where do I begin with this? So let me tell you a little bit about my dating, and then I'll get to kind of why this person changed that. So I was I don't really know what the word is for it, but I was out and about in London. I was having a lot of fun. It was, I didn't find dating a chore. I was good at dating, maybe we would say that.
Yeah, fair.
I've got ADHD, so I love meeting new people. New people to me is like kryptonite. It's like my nectar, right? So, dating out, meet loads of new people, go out. But, I was always kind of like, something's missing, or, this. And, sometimes I was really kind of valuing looks over personality. And I've been on some of the most boring dates you've ever met with some, really attractive girls, but they were so dull. And I was like, dull to me, but might not be dull to. And then it was like, then I was prioritizing then I was like, okay, I need to do the personality. Then I didn't have the sexual attraction. So I was kind of like, nothing's really, really hitting. And then I met Sarah. So Sarah and I met on an app called Raya, if you know what that is.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
Which is really funny because Raya, it's absolutely hilarious. So Raya, if you don't know what it is, was set up so like people in the celebrity world could meet each other without kind of going on to Tinder or Bumble or anything.
How
like
did you get? Who recommended you?
So I used to work in an influencer agency, and we had a couple of Victoria's Secret models and stuff like that on there. So
just recommend.
Yeah, I kind of nudged them like this. I remember actually doing it at this event. I was like, "Can you just get me into Raya?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure."
Because for those that don't know, you need multiple recommendations to get on an app like this.
Yeah, it's very. I think the stat is, and this is going to make me sound so big-headed, but I'll give you a stat. It's more people apply to Harvard and get in than get into Raya.
That's crazy.
Which is funny.
That is funny. It is to keep it safe, of course, for like the quite famous people that go on it. So it's not, I know it can sound bad on the outside, but it does have its reason for that.
For sure. And I think, it's a really great thing to do because, if you're really, really famous, I mean, I'm not obviously remotely famous, but if you are really famous and you go on Tinder, there's no way you're going to be vulnerable there. Yeah. But the funny thing is that when we both met, we were unemployed, which is hilarious. So you've got two people that have like snuck in under the rope into this fancy app. And when we met, we were both on furlough or unemployed. So I always think that's quite funny for the app that there's two people in there that are kind of getting government handouts to go on their Raya dates. So we had a really great first day. And, I thought she was, I was looking for someone that was really attractive, but for me on apps, I had to be like, are you going to fit in with my lifestyle? And so this is what I always say to people, like, make sure that you have a range of photos that shows stuff you do. Don't just have 5 pictures of yourself. It's like, just completely go away from me. Like, she went to festivals. I was like, yes, I like live music. She had a picture of her doing a speech. I was like, oh, she's confident. Like, she can go up and stand and give a speech. She was obviously really attractive. And we got on really, really well on the day. And I felt very comfortable with her. And I was like, I couldn't wait to see her again. So I was like, oh, let's go out again. And it was nice because I felt like for the first time when I'd been dating, that I could just be myself. And I think that's really, really important when you don't care about... My mouth works about 7 times quicker than my brain, and I say stuff a lot. Sometimes I'm like just trying to suck the word back in. And with her, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, sorry. And she was like, no, it's cool, don't worry about it. Just don't say it again next time, or something like that.
So she was patient with you.
She's very patient.
And I assume she doesn't have ADHD.
I don't know. She's got a lot of traits.
Okay. But naturally was patient, allowed you to be completely yourself, is what I'm hearing here.
Yeah, I think we're both like that with each other. You know, Sarah has, you know, she's got a lot of traits that like I can help her with. You know, she has to focus on one thing, whereas I can do 100 things at once. I'm quite happy doing that, so I can help her with those types of things. You know, and it's been great, you know, to watch. I hate the way like watch people grow, but you know, she's a lot more confident now than she was when we first met. You know, she's come into her own a lot more, and she cooks more now because she's always nervous about burning things and kind of, you know, that kind of thing. But it's just about finding somewhere where you feel comfortable to be yourself. And I hate to sound like some sort of like cringing rom-com, but I just think you just know if that person is like the one that you want to stay with or not.
Did you know quickly though?
Well, so interestingly, we got out of lockdown, we met, and then we went back into lockdown. So then it was intense because it was basically like we were living together, but we'd only really been dating for 3 weeks. And it was kind of like we were living together. And I was kind of like, oh, maybe I need to go on some other dates to just as benchmarking really. But I just didn't want to. And I felt bad on it. Like we hadn't had any conversation about what we were, but because we were just near enough living together, I just felt bad. I was like, I couldn't really go on another date now, kind of thing. And so we kind of were thrust into, you know, this, and that's kind of a weird way to do it, but it's either going to make or break you. You're either going to be like, I can't. And we did all of that second or third or whatever it was lockdown, and we didn't rip each other's hair out.
And here you are. And also, I think that's lockdown relationships have been quite a nice reflection that there isn't always timings to stuff and things to climb for. Like sometimes you can just get thrown in, and for situations, maybe one of you are from abroad or like you guys, you're in lockdown, you can have times where you actually do live together, even though it's not a big conversation of let's move in now. And that's okay. Like, I think it's important to note that relationships all have their different route, different journeys, different timings. And the second that you try and copy this, like me, have to date for 3 months before being boyfriend and girlfriend, then you might be together a year or two, then it's an engagement, then it's marriage, then it's we're out of that now. So that doesn't exist anymore.
Finished.
And I think there's some negativity to that, but I think in lots of ways that it's also very, very positive that you can just be like, this was thrown upon us and it's worked, so let's keep going.
For sure. I think just do what makes you, I said this before, but just do what makes you feel comfortable. So if you want to sleep with someone on their first date, sleep with someone on their first date.
No rules. Right? No I'm all rules. About that, yeah.
If you want to wait to do that, then wait to do that. If you want to ask someone out, in 3 weeks, then fine. Do that. Do whatever makes you feel comfortable, because you'll know, you kind of have to trust your intuition. And I think we're stopping doing that in the day and age of social media. It's like, someone tell me how I should feel. Just trust your gut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it's there for a reason, right? Trust yourself more.
Always trust the gut. Well, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. You can head to the bio to find out all the socials. And of course, you can follow me on Daisy Dates Podcast, TikTok, Instagram. Follow myself, which is Daisy Bell on TikTok and Instagram. And you can listen to the podcast wherever you go to get them, literally everywhere, and Apple as well. And you can watch on YouTube. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. So excited to bring these guests to you who are experts in their field in every different kind of way. If you have any episode suggestions, then please do get in touch. Remember, this is a community for you as well. Do go and join the Daisy Dates Facebook group. This is a place for women all across the UK to meet up, make new friends, and network. Of course, everyone else is welcome everywhere else. Daisy Dates Podcast on Instagram, and follow me as well. Come and get to know me, and I'd love to get to know you. Daisy Bell on Instagram and TikTok. Come and say hello. My DM's are always open, and I'm really excited to see where season 2 is going to take us. You can follow on socials, all the updates there.